Hello and welcome to this PTS Primo Charts educational presentation where today we're going to take you step by step and we're going to go up to the next level, which is level number 3. Now in level number 3 we teach you how to listen to the market, how to find out what the overall trend and the short-term trend are telling you when they're in sync with each other. So today promises to be a great presentation. Once again, we are now at level 3, and please take a moment to view our disclaimer. We're required to show you this. I'm going to show you a lot of performance results, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future. Okay, why don't we begin? And a lot of people always ask me, Steve, trading is complicated. There's so many things to take into consideration. There's so many indicators. There's so many variables to look at, a lot of news, and so people tend to get bogged down. I know when I first started trading, I did. But here's what my mentors told me, and here's what has really stuck with me throughout the years. Your job as a trader is really very, very simple. In fact, there are only 2 things that are required from you. The first thing is to simply listen to the market. Okay, all you have to do is listen to what the market wants to do, and then the second thing is to jump on board, to add some type of structure to your trading that gets you in sync with what the market wants to do. See, it's really simple. We just have to learn how to listen to the market. The only trouble is most of us have never been taught how to do that. We're always taught how to listen to the news. We have to decipher what the news means. We're always taught how to decipher what the earnings are supposed to be. We're always taught to listen to the indicators. But none of us really listen to the chart in front of us. Well, that's the beauty of PTS Primo charts. We're teaching traders how to trade by listening to the market. For the very first time, you have something, you have a portal in front of you that educates you and will tell you how to do that. And that's what we're going to be discussing today in level 3. So the question is, how do we listen to the market? Well, the easiest way to listen to the market is by listening to a tool which translates what the market wants to do on the short term. And that is with the PET-D. Okay, you've heard me talk about the PET-D before. It's the best tool I know of that simply tells you what the market wants to do. So if we haven't learned how to listen to the market, the PET-D does that for us. It tells you tick by tick what the market wants to do. So let's take it step by step and see how we can apply the PET-D, because there are really only 2 ways to apply the PET-D. First of all, it's a short-term trend identifier, so it can tell us what the trend is on the short term. But secondly, it can also confirm a signal by one of the strategies or techniques we're using. So, step 1. If you want to confirm a strategy, obviously you have to pick your strategy, okay? You have to choose which strategy you're trading. We've covered this in levels 1 and level 2. Remember, only pick 1 or 2 strategies that you should be using, whether you're a conservative trader, an aggressive trader, whether you like to trade pullbacks or consolidation, but just pick 1 or 2 at the very most. And then once you choose your strategy, well, remember, there's just 2 styles. Stick with what feels comfortable for you. Now, we're going to pick probably the most popular strategy because it encompasses both continuation as well as pullback trading, and that's strategy number 4. Okay, so let's look at a chart here on our PTS Primo charts. We have Amgen plotted. Now, as you can see, Amgen went straight up for a while, then it went straight down, had a nice gap to the downside, started to come down lower. We have the color ribbon buy-sell line plotted on the bottom. So we can see where we kind of had these up and down kind of overall trend identifiers on the very bottom. But remember, the buy-sell line identifies the overall trend. So it's telling you with the blue ribbon that the overall trend is up, and it's telling you with the red or orange reddish that it's down, all right? So now what we want to do is simply click on the strategy tab. In this case, since we're following strategy number 4, we click on strategy number 4 and the drop-down menu appears. Let's click on signal arrows. Now you should know how to identify a strategy number 4 signal, but to check your work, we click on the arrows and now the arrows appear. As we can see, we have 1 sell right off the bat, and then we have 3 buys that worked out fairly well. Then we had another buy which actually didn't work out well at all. So the very first sell didn't work out very well, and the very last buy didn't work out very well. They're in sync with the overall trend, but how can we increase our odds for consistency even more? Well, this is where the PET-D comes into play. All you have to do is simply add the PET-D to confirm those signals. Excuse me. And the PET-D will confirm whether you should be taking them or not, because it will tell you if the short-term trend is in sync with that particular setup. So, step 2, we want to confirm with the PET-D. So we go back to the chart, and remember, this is a proprietary color bar algorithm, so there's nothing you have to figure out. We've made it simple for you. When I was first introduced to this tool some 40 years ago, it was something we had to calculate by hand, but you don't no longer have to do that. It's all right there for you. It's a proprietary color bar algorithm that simply tells you by the color of the bar whether we're in a short-term uptrend or a short-term downtrend. So it literally is a roadmap for any market, any direction, and any time frame. Okay, so here are the rules we want to apply when we're using it as a confirmation tool. If strategy 4, or any strategy for that matter, but since we're looking at strategy 4, if strategy 4 generates a buy setup bar, in other words, there's a green arrow, then the PET-D must color that very same bar green. That means that the setup is in sync with the short-term trend, okay? Now conversely, if strategy 4, or any strategy for that matter, generates a valid sell setup bar, well then the PET-D must color that same bar red. That means the short-term trend is in sync with all of the rules that were required to make up that bar a setup bar. Okay? It's that simple, and it's all there in front of you. So what we're doing now is we're listening to what the market wants to do, and we're adding some structure to jump on board. So let's go back to the chart. We added the PET-D, okay? So we simply want to click on the PET-D tab up here, and it appears. All right? So let's follow our confirmation tool. Remember, if we get a sell signal, as we did right here, that bar must be colored red. So what color is it? It's green. So the PET-D was telling us not to take this trade. It's not a highly probability setup that this is going to work out. And as you can see, it really didn't. It went down a little bit, but right away you would have gotten a buy signal that would have knocked out all of your profits, because you would have had to cover and go long now if you chose to do that. So it really didn't generate much profit. But guess what? Now this buy signal is colored green, and so is this one, and so is this one. So all three were confirmed by the PET-D, and they all worked out rather nicely, as you can see. Now we come to the last signal, which was also a buy. In order to be a valid confirmation, the setup bar needs to be colored green if it's a buy signal. And what color is the setup bar? It's red. So the PET-D was not in sync with the rules, and it was telling you not to take this trade. It was a good idea you didn't, because look what happened. So do you see how we're learning to listen to the market? The PET-D tells us what it wants to do. Even though the rules of the strategy may be met, the PET-D is translating it, what the market really wants to do, and the market still wants to go lower. So maybe that, even the rules came together, that's not the best buy, okay? Let's look at another example here. This is in Yahoo. Okay, as we look at the overall trend, we look at the bottom color ribbon bar, and what color is that? It's blue. So the overall trend going back 2 or 3 months has been up. So we knew as far back as February, at the very beginning of this chart, that we should be only looking to buy Yahoo, because why? The overall trend is up. So we're listening to the market. We're not listening to what some earnings projections are. We're not listening to some guy in a chat room. We're listening to the market. But that's the overall trend. Okay, now we need to jump on board. So how do we do that? Well, we add some structure. In that case, we're using strategy number 4 again. So we click on the strategy number 4 tab, and it automatically generates the signals. We have 3 buy signals here at the end of March and beginning of April. Now, as you can see, one worked out not so well. It kind of went up the very first day after you would have entered, and then it went sideways after that. Nothing much happened. But the next 2 buy signals actually worked out very well. They were at the very beginning of a long extended rally to the upside, a nice uptrend. Okay? How could the PET-D have helped us? Well, all you have to do to confirm is simply click on the PET-D tab in the strategy, the green strategy tab level here, and highlight it, and automatically the colors change. So as we recall, if we got a buy signal, that bar needs to be confirming it by coloring the bar green. And look what happened in the very first bar. Even though it was an update, the outline of the bar is red. So you can have an update, and the PET-D is still telling you that the trend is not, verifying that. So you would not have taken this signal. And even though we went up a little bit, it really wasn't the most advantageous. You would have had to sit for a nice couple of weeks, and you would have wondered, is this, should I stay long this? Maybe I should just get out. Whereas these two next signals were colored green, and they went up ever since you purchased it. So we have the overall trend telling us we want to go higher, and we have the short-term trend. Now, I know a lot of traders like to use this technique or method where if you're trading daily bars, such as we have here in Yahoo, what you want to do is make sure that the weekly trend is up, and then that'll tell you that you can buy on the daily trend as long as the daily trend is up. So you want to use two different time frames to tell you that it's okay to buy, all right? You don't have to make it that complicated. Remember, once again, I said at the very beginning, most traders overcomplicate their trading by listening to too many things, too many outside sources. If you want to just get the confirmation, all you have to do is see that the overall trend is up and the short-term trend is up when we turn green. And that's it. And then add some structure in the form of a strategy. It's that simple. Now, this is using the PTD as a confirmation tool. But remember, the PTD can be used also as a stand-alone trading tool. So let's go to step number 3 now. Techniques, trading techniques with the PTD. Now, I'm not going to go into all of them. There are about 4 or 5 nice ways to trade the PTD on its own. And these are simply techniques. But I'm going to share one of them with you. Now, when we say techniques, they differ from strategies because strategies come with a complete set of rules. Where to buy, where to sell, where to place your stop, money management, and then different variables for those different levels. Well, with a technique, all it's basically telling you is that this is a nice environment to purchase, or this is a nice environment to sell. Where you decide to enter, to place your stop, where you decide to exit is entirely up to you. So these are just techniques. They're not full-fledged strategies because the PTD does not generate strategies. It's just a short-term trend identifier which listens to what the market wants to do. So let's look at our chart here again in Yahoo. All right. As we can see, the overall trend is up as signified by the blue color band ribbon. And then we have pockets here of where the short-term trend was in sync. Now, one of the best ways I know in which to trade the PTD for technique-wise is to look at what we call an inside bar. Okay, an inside bar is a 2-bar pattern. What you see here is an inside bar. Bar number 1 and bar number 2. Now, bar number 2's range from top to bottom, from top of the wick to the bottom of the wick, is usually inside or equal to bar number 1's range from top to bottom of the wick. Okay, this will usually tell you when you have that inside day pattern that it's coiling and it's getting ready to move in one direction strongly. The only trouble is, without knowing what the market wants to do, we don't know which direction that's going to take place. It could be coiling and then go straight down, or it could be coiling and go straight up. This is where the PTD comes into being a great way to listen to the market. Because if both those bars are colored green, the PTD is telling you it wants to go higher. So it's coiling before it explodes to the upside. And as you can see, we had a very nice upward move after that. And the beauty of this is that these appear all the time. If you missed that setup, well, look, we had 3 more before Yahoo really took off. Now remember, this is not a strategy. This is not telling you where to enter, where to place your stop, where to exit. It's just telling you these are fertile ground for entering into the stock. Let's look at GWW. Obviously, in hindsight, we were going lower, okay? The overall trend, roughly in mid-March, was down, okay? So we knew well before the bottom fell out of this stock that we were going much lower. But how could we have known in advance if the short-term trend was in sync with the overall trend? Well, we apply the PTD. And as we can see here, the PTD had consistent red colors well in advance of the overall trend. So it was telling you well in advance that we want to go much, much lower. Now let's apply that same technique. We look back in hindsight and say, boy, I would have loved to have gone short this, or at least, how could I have gotten a signal to get out of this stock if I was long? Well, once again, let's go back and use that 2-day pattern, the inside day. As we can see here, it's a 2-bar pattern. Bar number 2's range is equal to or less than bar number 1's open to close range. So that's an inside pattern. And both bars are colored red. So the inside pattern is the market telling you. It's the market, once again, telling you that most likely there's going to be some volatility and it's going to explode in one direction. All right? When the bars are colored red, it's also the market telling you through our translator, the PTD, that most likely that move is going to be to the downside. And then coupled with the overall trend buy-sell line, Now you have the overall trend down as well, so you have a lot of positive things going for it. So if you had taken this advice right here, roughly about 240, well, gosh, that's a good 60, 65 points to the downside in the next month or two, okay? All without the fact of looking at earnings, all without the fact of looking at economic reports, all without the fact of having tons of indicators. We're just listening to the market. I often say this, but the market, I would say about 85 to 95% of the time, tells you in advance what it wants to do. The only trouble is we never have learned how to listen to the market. We're always taught to listen to some trading guru or some news event. And those things are usually too late. But the market tells you in advance. So just by listening to these simple tools I've just explained to you here, you could have taken advantage of that. And once again, if you miss that setup, there's always a lot more along the way. These are all inside day patterns here you could have taken advantage of. And both the bars were colored red. All right, so let's recap what we talked about today. Remember, your job as a trader is not difficult. It's not complicated. You don't have to look at a ton of indicators. You don't have to figure out how to decipher what the news is. You don't have to figure out what the earnings are. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's really simple. There are only two things that are required from you as a trader. The first thing is you must learn to listen to the market. The second thing is once you know what the market wants to do, you just jump on board. It's that simple, okay? And the beauty is we have the tools, techniques, the strategies, and all of the learning things that you need in order to listen to the market at the new PTS Primo charting platform. It's all contained. It's all one-stop shopping. There's nowhere else you need to go. So we just went over level 3, and this is really, you're starting to get to be an advanced trader because for the first time, you're learning how to listen to the market. Remember, our job as your educator is to teach you how to trade. Our job is not to force feed you signals. Our job is not to tell you what the best stock is to buy or what the best market is to trade. Our job is just to educate you, to learn all these things and tell you what to listen to and what not to listen to, and then teach you how to trade so you can ultimately be on your own and not have to listen to anyone or anything else. Remember, for more information, contact Pro Trader Strategies, contact your personal trading consultant. You can email them at the email address above or call them directly at area code 310-598-6677. As we conclude this presentation, I hope you got something out of it. Remember to constantly research and study and paper trade these methods so that you fully understand them. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.